If I were starting over as a freight broker in 2026, I would not start by getting my authority, designing a logo, building a website, or jumping on a load board. Those things may matter, but they're not what create a successful freight brokerage. The real question is not, how do I become a licensed freight broker? The real question is, how do I build a business that actually gets shippers, moves freight, makes money, and survives? So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how I would become a freight broker in 2026 if I were starting all over again. I'll cover what I would focus on first, what I would avoid, whether I would become a freight broker or freight agent, and what I would do in my first 90 days. Okay, so for those of you that don't know me, my name is Dennis Brown. I built a freight brokerage that did over $200 million in sales, and I've trained over 10,000 people worldwide through my Freight Broker Bootcamp. So this is not theory. This is based on real experience, real mistakes, real lessons, and what I would do if I had to start from scratch. Now in this video is going to be a little bit different than the free training I call How to Become a Freight Broker in 7 Simple Steps. That training walks you through the basics, including the basic roadmap. Things like training and authority, finding your niche, setting up your home office, using software, factoring, and selling to shippers. So stick around and I'll give you the link to that at the end of this video. So make sure to stick around to the end. But this video is not just about the steps. This video is about the strategy. Because in 2026, the order matters. Your focus matters. Your niche matters. And your sales process matters. And the way you can start either gives you momentum or causes you to waste a lot of time and energy. So the first thing I want you to understand is this. Getting your freight broker authority makes you a legal freight broker, but it does not make you profitable. A lot of beginners think, once I get my MC number, my bond, my BLC3, and my basic setup, I'm in business. Technically, yes, but practically, not really. Because a freight brokerage does not become a real business until you can do 3 things. Find shippers, find carriers, put profitable loads together. That is the business, okay? The paperwork is part of the setup, but sales and operations and relationships are what create revenue. So if I were starting in 2026, I would not confuse getting legal with getting ready. Big difference. So what has changed in 2026? Well, the freight broker business is still a real and viable opportunity in 2026. And in some ways, beginners have more advantages than ever before because there are more tools, there's more training, there's more data, and there's more ways to reach potential customers. But the key is starting the right way. Shippers have heard a lot of generic broker pitches. So the opportunity is to sound more specific and more helpful than the average broker. Instead of saying, we have trucks in your area, speak to the real shipper problems like missed pickups and late deliveries, and poor communications, last minute coverage, or unreliable capacity. Yes, there is competition, but competition also proves there is demand. Freight still needs to move every single day. The key is not to try to be everything to everybody. The key is choosing a niche, learning that customer, and becoming useful to a specific type of shipper. Technology is also easier to access today. Load boards, TMS systems, CRMs, LinkedIn, freight data, carrier vetting tools can all help you get started faster and stay organized. But the biggest advantage in 2026 is still sales skills. If you can learn how to start conversations and ask good questions, follow up properly, quote freight the right way, and solve problems, you can separate yourself from a lot of beginners. So yes, the business has changed, but the opportunity is still there for people who learn the business. Pick a lane, use simple tools, and build real relationships. The first thing I would do is learn the business before I started spending money on the business. Okay, so that's number one. I would want to understand the basics first. You know, how freight moves and what a shipper is and what a carrier is and what a broker actually does, how brokers make money, what equipment types are common. what problems shippers actually care about, how pricing works at a basic level, how carriers are found and vetted, and how freight brokers get paid. Because if you don't understand the business model, you can spend money on authority and software and websites and tools and logos and still have no clue how to make money. So my first move would be education, not just random videos. I would want a structured training that helps me to understand the business from start to finish. Okay, that was number one. Number two, the second thing I would do is decide whether I should become a freight broker or a freight agent. Now, this is a big decision, and I think a lot of beginners skip over it too fast. The freight broker usually operates under their own authority. That means you're responsible for setup, compliance, billing, collections, carrier setup, customer acquisition, and the overall business. Now, a freight agent usually works under an existing licensed freight broker as a 1099 independent agent. That means you may not need your own authority or bond or factoring or back office setup. Your main job as a freight agent is usually to find customers, help move freight, and earn a commission. So which one is better? It depends. If I had limited startup money, no industry experience, and wanted support, I would strongly consider becoming a freight agent first. Now, on the other hand, if I had the money to set up properly, and I wanted full control, and I was serious about building my own brand, I would seriously consider starting my own brokerage. But I would not choose based on an ego. I would choose based upon my money, my experience, my risk tolerance, and the support needs. That one decision can save a beginner a lot of stress. Okay? Number three, the third thing I would do is pick a niche before I started to randomly just pitch everybody. One of the biggest mistakes new brokers make is trying to serve every shipper in every industry. They say something like, we can move anything, anywhere, anytime. That sounds flexible, but to a shipper, it often sounds generic. If I were starting over, I would narrow my focus. I might choose a niche by equipment type. For example, flatbeds or reefers, dry vans, oversized, or maybe even drayage. I might choose a product type. For example, maybe building materials or food or steel or machinery, produce or maybe packaging of some sort. I might choose by geography or lane. For example, Northeast outbound freight or Midwest manufacturing freight or Texas to Southeast lanes. Or I might use a hybrid approach. For example, flatbed freight for steel companies in the Midwest. The more focused you are, the easier it is to understand the customer and learn the language and identify common problems and sound different from every other broker. So in 2026, I would not start broad. I would start narrow. The fourth thing I would do is build a prospect list early. Now, let me be clear. I'm not saying that you should start selling freight brokerage services before you're properly set up, okay? Whether that be as a freight broker getting your license or whether as an agent working under an established broker. What I am saying is this: do not wait until everything is done before you start learning who your potential customers are. Once I picked a niche, I would start researching potential shippers. I'd look for companies that manufacture or import or distribute or ship physical products in my niche. I would identify possible decision makers like shipping managers and logistics managers or transportation managers, supply chain managers, warehouse managers. Then I would organize that information into a simple CRM or maybe a spreadsheet like a Google Sheet, adding things like the company name and the contact name, the title, phone number, email, location, things of that nature. Maybe the type of freight or some possible lanes. That way, once I was properly set up and ready to operate, I wouldn't be staring at a blank screen wondering who to call. I would already have a targeted list of prospects that fit my ideal customer profile. This is where the business starts to become real, because without a prospect list, you're just hoping. With a prospect list, you have something to work. The fifth thing I would do is to create a better shipper message. Most new brokers sound exactly the same. They say, hi, my name's Dennis with ABC Logistics. We're a full service logistics company and we have great rates and great service. Do you have any freight we can quote? That's what everyone says. And that's why shippers tune it out. If I were starting over, I would create a message that was more specific. For example, we help steel manufacturers reduce missed pickups and last-minute carrier issues on regional flatbed freight. That sounds different, right? Or we work with food distributors that need help covering refrigerated loads when their regular carriers fall short. That's more specific. The goal is not to sound cute. The goal is to sound relevant. Relevance gets attention. Generic pitches get ignored. So before I made hundreds of calls, I would work on my message. Because practice does not help much if you're practicing the wrong pitch. Let me say that again. Practice does not help much if you're practicing the wrong pitch. The sixth thing I would do is learn sales before I desperately needed sales. This is huge. Most freight brokers wait until they're broke, frustrated, or desperate before they take sales seriously. This is the wrong time to learn. If you sound desperate, shippers can hear it, I promise you. If you sound unprepared, shippers can hear it, I promise you. If you sound like every other broker, shippers can hear it. So I would study sales early. I would learn how to open a cold call, how to ask better questions, how to handle common shipper objections, how to follow up without being annoying, how to create curiosity, how to position yourself around problems, not just rates, how to ask for a quote opportunity, and how to stay calm when someone says no to you. Because freight brokerage is not just logistics problems or logistics business, it's a sales business. And if you can learn how to sell, you can separate yourself from a lot of beginners. Now, if I decided to become a freight broker instead of a freight agent, then yes, I would get properly set up. That includes applying for your broker authority and getting your proper bond and your trust, filing your BOC3 or handling your UCR if required. Setting up business banking and making sure I could understand basic compliance. But here's the key. I would not treat that as the finish line. I would treat that as the permission slip. Listen carefully. Getting your authority gives you permission to broker freight. It does not give you customers. It does not give you carriers. It does not even give you confidence. It does not give you a sales process. So yes, get set up properly. But do not make the mistake of thinking setup equals success. If I were starting from zero in 2026, here is what I would think about my first 90 days. In the first 30 days, I would focus on clarity. I would learn how the business works. I would decide if I wanted to become a broker or an agent. I would study the common equipment types. I would learn how brokers make money. I would pick 1 to 3 possible niches. I would start building a prospect list. I would start studying sales. The goal of this first 30 days is not to look impressive. The goal is to understand the game. Now, in days 31 to 60, I would start setting up my system. If I chose the freight broker path, I would begin the authority in the setup process. If I chose the freight agent path, I would research brokers to partner with. I'd build a simple CRM. I would write my basic shipper message. I'd create a follow-up process. I would learn basic rate research. I would start practicing sales conversations, real conversations. The goal of days 30 to 60 is just get organized before you start your outreach. Now, in days 61 to 90, I would focus on conversations, real conversations with real shippers. I'd contact prospects daily. I would track every call, every email, every LinkedIn message, and every follow-up. I would listen for problems. I would ask good questions. I'd quote opportunities when I earned the chance. And I would build carrier relationships in my niche. I'd review what is working and improving every week. The goal of day 61 to 90 is not perfection. The goal is momentum. Now, let me tell you what I would not do if I started over in 2026. I would not get my authority with no plan to get customers. I would not think a load board is a business plan. I would not spend weeks obsessing over logos and websites and business cards, okay? I would not try to serve every industry. I would not call shippers with a generic pitch. I would not quit after a few rejections. I would not ignore follow-up, and I would not try to compete only on cheap rates. I would not treat training like entertainment, and I would not confuse being busy with building a real business. Now, a lot of beginners fail because they focus on easy, visible stuff and avoid the uncomfortable money-making stuff. The uncomfortable stuff is usually where the money is. Calling shippers, following up, learning the business, solving real problems, and getting better every week. Okay? If I had to simplify the whole thing, here's the formula that I would follow. Number 1, learn the business. Number 2, pick your path. Number 3, choose a niche. Number 4, build a prospect list. Number 5, create a better message. Number 6, contact shippers consistently. Number 7, follow up on time and always. Number 8, quote freight. Number 9, learn from every conversation. And number 10, improve every week. Now that's not glamorous, but it works. Freight brokerage rewards people who can stay focused and stay consistent and solve problems for shippers. Now, if you want the basic step-by-step roadmap, I put together a free training called How to Become a Freight Broker in 7 Simple Steps. It walks you through the core steps of getting started, including training and authority and niche and your home office and software and factoring and selling to shippers. You can just go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com/7 steps. I'll be sure to put the link in the description below. So grab the free training and use it as your beginner roadmap. And if you want more help, my full Freight Broker Bootcamp training goes much more in depth on how to start and grow a successful freight broker or freight agent business. All the details can be found at freightbrokerbootcamp.com.